Hey folks, I think that I am live. Yes, I am. All right. They're sending me a notice. Here I am with my nerd glasses on again, my work glasses. All right. So I have zero forethought today about what we will cover today. Tune? I don't even know. Nothing with that. I got this in tune here. Get tuned in case anybody wants to play along with me. Get a tuner here. See if it's got a good battery in it or not. Yes. A little flat. Okay. So, and I'm tuning to A440. Even though there's much more and more evidence that 432 is probably something that's more harmonious with the universe. 4s, 3s, and 2s are everywhere, according to that genius guy, that Robert Grant. Have you seen any of his stuff? Robert Grant, look him up. Robert Grant. Got all kinds of facts and figures about the distance between here and the sun and all these different things. And there seems to be 4, 3s, and 2s in almost all those calculations. This is crazy. So who am I to say? But for today, we'll be in today's standard pitch of 440, so nobody gets confused. If there's interest, I will do all these in 432. So you can look up information about that. There's much debate, on the internet about that. There's even information on the on this very channel, and there's information on my Fiddle Jam Institute website as well, which I have open over there. That's why I keep looking. So, well, what to cover today? Maybe I'll just play a little bit first. Little blues there. So what the heck was I just doing? I call that kind of swamp fiddle style. And what I mean by that, in the term that I've coined, is it's kind of swimming around, isn't it? A lot of slides and swimming around between major and minor. So I started out with the boogie woogie. Now, if you have the Fiddle Jam book, Fiddle Jam, a way cool, easy way to learn how to improvise, which is out for the last 20 years now by the Hal Leonard Corporation. It teaches you a chapter on boogie woogie playing. It's very simple. What you do, it's easy in the keys of G, D, and A. I would do it in G there. So it's G and D. Take your bow so it's on both strings. Twice. Got that? Then you add your first finger for the woogie, boogie, woogie. For the woogie, you put your first finger on E1 on the D string with open G. Some beginners get freaked out and they try and put the finger on both strings, or they try and get weird, confused with the bow. Keep the bow calmly on both strings, and then put the first finger only on the upper of the two strings. If you're new to playing on double strings, you may want to cheat a little bit at first and lift, once you have your bow on the strings, lift the pinky, the ring, and the middle finger, and really leaning on the index finger, and the thumb behind. Don't do it here, you will have no controller power. You want the thumb to be behind the first finger, and you'll be able to feel which strings you are. You'll get a little more sensitivity if you. Now these are very helpful to keep control of the bow, but you can lift them up to gain the sensitivity. So really feel it. Boogie, woogie, boogie. A little accent to the bow. You can squeeze there to get the accent. Boogie, woogie. Now I went one note further, what I call the low two boogie. Boogie, woogie, low two. If you're doing learning theory, this is the root, the fifth, in any key, in the key of G in this case, and adding the root in sixth, and the root in the flatted seventh. If you're new to number speak, the note number system, what it's based on is the major scale. In the seventh note, in the key of G is F sharp normally. So, and if it's lower to half step, it's called the flatted seventh, even though it's not a flatted note. It's the lowered seventh, all right? We call it, nickname it a flatted seventh, because the normal seventh is F sharp, and now we're taking it down to F natural. It's still called a flatted seventh, or minor seventh, some people call it. 6, flat 7. And for those who are new to swing or shuffle, I was not doing it straight. What's natural for me after all these years is swinging it or shuffle. Long, short, long, short. There's a natural accent that happens on the up bow to catch up the bow. Accents are cool. It makes it come alive. That's all right. And again, it's a little bit speed and a little bit pressure. And physics, because you're going twice as long in the down bow and doing the same distance in less time, in a half the time. Now, a good violinist can also vary that pressure so that they can make the volume the same on each, but don't worry about it. If there's a little accent, that's cool. It's like speaking and getting loud and getting quieter, and this kind of thing. It brings life to your playing. So just like you speak, just like you'd speak, just like you'd speak, right? Had certain words stick out more. It makes you more of an interesting speaker. Get your point across. So is it with music. So accents are cool. Remember to not play everything the same volume. And where does the accent come from? It comes from the speed of the bow and the pressure. All right? So, boogie woogie in G. If you're playing along, you should get that. But now, I was playing a 12-bar blues, which there are lessons. Helicopter going over pretty low. Anyways, there are lessons on the site, and there's a whole blues course I have in the school store if you're interested in that. I'm pretty proud of that. It's a good one. It's like 13 songs. We get into that stuff a little more, but the chords change in a 12-bar blues. It's the standard blues. There is the fourth chord in the key of G, G, A, B, C. So I went to a C chord stuff. And there's a 5 chord, the fifth chord, G, A, B, C, D. There's a G, C, and D is the 3 chords that I was playing off of there at the beginning. And if you're more advanced, you can, and you're listening to this, I aim for certain notes. I do think of a different scale when that chord hits. So I'm aware of all the chords as they pass by underneath. Now, in this case, I was just making them up and hearing them in my own head. You know, you weren't hearing them. But if you follow carefully, you can actually hear when the chords change. Check it out. I'm playing off a G. I'm changing chords. That was the C chord. Back to G. D chord. C. G. Now what am I doing there? I'm mostly using the arpeggio of each chord as the skeleton, the bones. And I fill in and swish around and swirl around and add some other tricks to it. But the main chord tones would be the main ribs of what you're doing. So if the band's on a G, you'd use the 3 notes that are in a G chord, which are every other note of the scale, G, B, D. So you should know your arpeggios. G, B, D, anywhere. All the way up the violin if you have to, but at least in the first position. Do I play just arpeggios? No, that'd be boring. Do I do other notes too? Yes, some of the tricks are as follows. I would slide the third. Instead of B, I would go. Thank you. It is fiddling. So slide the thirds in from minor to major, or anywhere in between. It doesn't have to be kind of in tune. Now, classical people go, "Oh God, how could you say that?" I was classically trained, and this is the magic of it. In the blues, you can kind of get quarter steps going on inside, and it sounds very natural to us from the flat third to the third, or somewhere in between. And the other one, which you've heard me say here before, is the flatted fifth. So the fifth note, G, A, B, C, D. D on the 5 chord. On the D is the fifth of the 1 chord, the G. So D flat, you can't retune your D string, so you got to get the D flat on the other string. So 4th finger D on the G string. Those are kind of new to 4th fingers, and you've dropped it down. So D flat. You can slide it up with the pinky. You start filling in briefly with other notes in between the skeleton on each chord. So a C chord would be C, E, G. Again, to just jam with the arpeggio only is like very safe, but very boring. All right, it fit the chord perfectly, but what fun is that? You got to poke around and have some accents, like in the rhythm, and some notes that stick out, and you create a little tension, and you release them. The notes that are in the chord would be the release notes. The notes that are not in the chord or are stretching the chord tones would be the tension notes. Just like weather has a, there's high pressure system comes in, releases, and low pressure. And this thing happens in nature, it happens in music. So when I was on C, I was also putting the flat 7th in, because most chords in blues almost always have a flat 7th. So I don't think up 7 and down a half step. I don't think it's too much thinking. It goes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and B flat. That's the chord's gone. The song is half over by the time you figure it out. The fastest way, and again, I teach mental tricks not because I'm trying to dumb it down for you, but because to do your job well, you need to not think too hard. That's all what I say about jamming here. The less you have to think about, the quicker you'll be on your toes or on your fingers, and the more naturally stuff will come out. So think of the flatted 7th as the octave minus a whole step. That's easy. It goes, I'm on C, C, down a whole step, B flat. All right? You have to think up the whole scale that way. Just know that trick. 7th is down a half step. Flat 7th is down a whole step. All right? Down a whole step from any C. Okay? So I added in the flat 7th in the C. And I also would slide in the flat fifth. So on the violin, it's tuned in fifth. So if it's C, straight across is G, the fifth. And I dip that note. Flat 7. And slide that third. Starts sounding cool right away, doesn't it? And the notes I fit in is the sixth. It fits in between these flat sevenths and the fifths. And I fit in the 2 once in a while. Like on C, I'll put a D in. Inconsequential. And once around the 4th. The main thing will be the arpeggio and then venturing outside the arpeggio. On the 5 chords, the 3-chord pattern that the blues has, the D chord, I also add the 7th. You have to know the arpeggio, D, F sharp, and A. And down a whole set, C. I do the same treatment. I add the flat 7th. I'll slide the 3rd. I put the 2nd E. Slide that 5th. And the 6th. So, now beyond knowing what to do on each of those 3 chords, the secret then becomes not having to think about it, knowing it well enough so you don't have to think about what you're doing so hard. Then it becomes more flowing and natural. And the other big secret that I personally head for, and every composer does, and every professional musician, we aim for the notes that change from one chord to the other. Usually the most intense interval is the interval of a half step. They're the closest. Just like people who are very much like you, we don't always get along. Like people in your family are like, get away from me, right? We kind of get rubbed the wrong way by the people that are closest to us. They give us a little space and we're all fine, right? That's just like people, notes can be the same thing. So when we moving by a big jump, it's not a big thing. It's more, it's just 2 different notes, but has a certain intensity, doesn't it? Moving by a half step. So harmonically, as we think of the arpeggios and the blue notes to throw in and the 7ths and stuff, get all these tricks. What we do is we map out, and you can actually get a piece of paper and map it out if you have the blues progression, where the half step motions are from chord to chord. So if the G chord, the first chord, has B in it, you'd know that the second chord, the C 7th, has a B flat in it. G. So I aim for those. I try to make sure that I nail them. It doesn't have to be on the first beat, but somewhere in my passages, I go for those juicy changes. So I know that B's are in the G chord. I know that B flats are in the C chord. I know that F sharps are in the D chord. That will move to the F natural in the G chord again. So G, B, D, and the flat 7th was F, right? But the D chord has an F sharp. So those are the ones, the juicy ones I aim for. Let me do it again. So I started out, I'll try and talk my way through it, so I'm not going to flow as naturally, but it's because I'm talking too. But G, F, F, slide the 5th, slide the 3rd, slide, F. Now I'm going to the C chord, and F can resolve a half step down to the E in the C chord. D flat. Now I'll talk about something. Our ears have a memory, which if you've watched any of my stuff, you know that I talk about the holographic brain with time in music. Probably in everything, not just music, but we all experience this. As you hear something, you hear what you hear as you hear it, of course, with your physical ears. But in your brain, you hear what you just heard bouncing around still while you're hearing this stuff real time, real time, real time, real but I'm still bouncing around in there. But also what we hear is the near future, what we expect to hear or hope to hear or hope to play in our case. So we hear these 3 different time zones all at once in our holographic brain. It's kind of weird. And even the listener, if you're nailed a B in the measure before and then you hit the B flat when the next chord hits sometime after that, the listener will kind of have a memory of that B and they'll go, oh, there's the B flat that goes with this chord. Oh, there it's going to A, okay. And the listener and ourselves have a bodily memory of that kind of. We feel that tension, and you feel that note, and then when we go to the next chord, we still have a memory of that one note, and if we alter it, half step, it relaxes or moves, or that's where the magic is. That's how you bring a pro level juiciness to your playing. So let me get back to this. So G chord, 7, dipping the 5th, dipping the 3rd. C, I'm nailing the E because it's a half step from the F. And the D flat because it's in the chord. B flat. Sliding that 3rd from E flat to E. Back to G. There you go, we're just on a C chord, and half step away is the B. So I went 3, 4, flat 5, and 5. Part of the G chord. If we go to the D chord, we're on a D, we could start with D. I just hit that F sharp because it's in that chord. I slid that into the F sharp. Slide into the 5th. Sliding into the F sharp. And going to C7 chord. The tritones, we call it, the devil's tone. All that stuff. So I'm on the C chord and I use B flat and E. So the 3rds and the 7ths are often the juicy notes. So if you memorize all the 3rds and the flat 7ths, and in a G chord we have both those move down a half step for the C chord. F and B for the G chord. It goes up a half step when you hit the D chord to C and F sharp. And C chord would be E and B flat. And then F and B. I'm doing cross positions here. So the 3rds and the 7ths are always moving around little bits, and they're the juicy ones to memorize and work on. So I hope that's helpful. So without a track, there's not much to do here on that. But so if you're watching, thank you. If you're watching any of these, thank you. I'm just scheduling it weekly. I know not a ton of people are watching at this point, but I keep going. And we'll develop it further as we go here too. And it seems to be drawing people into the site so they can benefit from my other materials as members on the site. If you were watching this, you had only people who watched the live stream were part of the sale and knew that there was a sale going on. Maybe that's foolish on my part, because I need to be in business too. But because not that many people watch them. But I'll try that sale again. If you missed it, it's gone from the store at this point. It was a sweet deal of $100 for everything I had, pretty much. It's usually about $1,000 for all the different things added up. So I'll run another sale again, don't worry, and I'll probably try and promote it a little bit better next time as I improve my business techniques. So unless there's a benefactor out there who just wants to throw me a bunch of cash, that'd be wonderful. I'll give you private lessons for for the year or something, whatever you want, if you want to throw me enough money. Otherwise, just keep watching this free stuff and come to the site and buy something once in a while. So that'd be most helpful too. If you like it, you give it a click on the thumbs up business down there. That helps the metrics on YouTube. And looking, as I've said before, to get into this live streaming thing a little harder, and maybe move it to, instead of being on my phone as I am now, move it to the laptop and get a better camera and stuff so I can watch the chats. I noticed one person, said something on the bottom. It's a little teeny little thing down the bottom of the phone. It's kind of hard for me to see. But I appreciate you participating. and we could go live and have actually more of a lesson room live with people who are participating. So we may develop this further and do more with that. But you can always go to the Fiddle Jam Institute and join. It's not a lot of money at this point for the whole library. There's a couple hundred or more lessons in there on all kinds of topics. I'll look at it right now. On the fiddlejaminstitute.com site, there's learning paths. You can look up and sort them by skill, by different kinds of knowledge, by different experiences and styles. The lessons, you can sort them alphabetically, A to Z. You can get them by topic. Like, I only want to know some fiddle tunes. You can look up just fiddle tunes. By style, I only want to know blues, so you can look up all the blues things there, or anything with the word associated with the blues you can search for. Lessons listed by learning level. I have basically 3 levels. There's the jammer level, when you're just getting used to improvising a little bit and know a few scales, and that's it, and you can learn to get loose and creative. That's one level. You don't have to think at all, don't have to know any theory on that level. The second level, where we were today, is kind of knowing the chords and knowing, hearing, being aware of the simple chord changes. I called it the gigger level, the level 2, kind of intermediate kind of thing. And then the third level is what I call the artist level, where you got to know more stuff, more scales, more chords, more theory, and also be well enough to think about it. That would be like in jazz and stuff like that. So, how are we doing for time? So it looks like we're about out of time for today. So hit me up if you got any questions, and thank you for participating in this grand experiment. And watch out, I will have more coming. All right? Amen. See you next time. Happy holidays.